Hi, Craig.
There it is.
Craig.
He's just so loyal, Craig.
Yep.
Anyways,
Do we need to
There we
update
are.
people on what Craig is?
apparently we do need to update on it. Craig is just the name of the bot that sits in here and records this for us because we do not all sit in the same room. If the variance in audio quality was not a dead giveaway of, of us not sitting in the same room, we could probably audio quality could probably go up just by each of us recording on our own systems, but that takes effort.
And then it takes like sending files, and then it takes editing them more
And then
precisely.
I gotta sync them up. It's not done automatic. Well, I guess it would be done. You can. The software will sync it up automatically as long as we did like at the beginning.
Discord didn't pick
Pick it up. Yeah, I didn't vary. It peaked it and it was like, nah, that's not going through, dude. We did a clap at the beginning.
No.
Anyways, let's not tangent for too long.
Before we do jump into the regular topic, did either of you watch or read about the D&D Direct announcements?
I watched a video today. I skimmed through a video today. This is the news segment. I skimmed through a video today of their VTT software.
Yeah.
Meh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought we should touch on it since it's a D&D podcast.
Okay, yeah, let's hit it.
There's no way it takes up a whole episode. So
tell me about it.
They basically went over the books that are coming out that they already went over a long time ago. They just reiterated those. They gave us footage of the virtual tabletop, which I don't really like. It looks like a video game almost. It looks too video game-ish.
Here's the thing.
And not tabletop-y enough.
It looks fine. It looks really pre-built. I would say the way it looks, if you're going to run a module and they already have pre-built maps and everything in there for it, and the rules are already in the game, and like your players' character sheets are stored in there and everything, it's probably a solid choice for you. Hypothetical newbie who also has 5 friends who all want to spend $50 on this thing.
It's gonna be $50.
I don't know. It's probably going to be $50. I mean, a book is $50. There's no way they're not going to charge that much for it.
My guess is that the VTT itself will be free or cheap, and all the add-ons are what's going to cost money.
Well, they'll integrate. I'm sure they'll integrate.
It'll be a huge load if they're like, if you want to be able to use your character, then you got to buy all the books again.
Yeah, they're not doing that. They're going to be like, it attaches.
Suck my ball.
It'll attach to the D&D Beyond. They'll make an API for D&D Beyond, which it'll connect to and everything, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it just looks. I mean, it looks very pretty.
It's very pretty,
but it just looks like a video game. It's like
it doesn't look miles different than Tailspire.
The part that I think looks more video game-ish is like they have set animations for things.
Oh, spell effects like fireballs and stuff.
Yeah, and like the little numbers that pop up after your damage numbers. It was like, what? Why? Just let it.
I'm going to tell you right now. I skimmed that video hard because most of it was just a dude going, "Yeah, we built it real good. It's so good. You should see it." And then it's like they'd show a guy. I remember one clip from the video specifically. The guy goes, "Dang, just rolled a 9," and then it showed like a screen and a 20 rolled, and I was like, couldn't even sync up that clip with what was on the screen.
Yeah, it's just I don't think it looks.
It feels lazy.
It looks like, oh, Tailspire does that. Oh, Tailspire does that. But it looks more like a video game than Tailspire. Anyway, so yeah, VTT it's not even out. It's just more hype for it.
Moral of the story: Tailspire's pretty good, and it's out now.
There's a bunch of
on Steam.
They talked about the movie. They talked about some new toys that are coming out through WizKids. They talked about some Magic the Gathering stuff.
None of that relevant to us.
They talked about some Drizzt stuff.
TV show.
Yeah, the documentary. They talked about that. There's a 50th anniversary D&D documentary that's going to be happening, and the thing that I thought was interesting, and it's only because I have an 11-year-old daughter, is there's going to be a D&D DLC for Minecraft.
Nice.
It's going to be like 10 hours worth of play material where you get to like go through, and it's kind of cool. Like they have a beholder looking thing and a dragon. It's cool looking.
I did
But
see
anyway.
that
Boxy
actually.
beholder,
Yeah,
a boxy
Yes.
eyeball. That's
Yep.
gonna be.
yeah. A box with an eyeball on it.
Yep.
and little boxy tendrils coming off the
Yep.
side, dude.
Yep. But
Well,
anyway, that's it for D&D Direct. It was I really was expecting them to make like
how many
a
books did
new
they announce?
announcement. No, nothing new.
Oh, okay.
Nothing at all new. They just went over the stuff that they had already talked about in their roadmap during the last big event.
So what you're saying is that the main event, aside from the video I watched, was just like a really lame E3 panel.
It was like a recap of the last time.
I didn't watch it, so I don't know if like they did anything on the video, but the recap is just like, here's the new books that are coming out. And I was like, yeah, I know.
We know.
You gave us this roadmap like 6 months ago.
It's like an Apple style presentation, dude. They had to get out there and be like, "Hey guys, what's up? Here's the stuff that's coming down the pipe. You know what I'm saying? Check out these videos that we made. Here's a developer talking about the VTT." And they go to him and he's like, "And today we made this VTT. It's super streamlined. The animations are nice." And they're like, "Wow, great presentation." And they bring it back over.
I am looking
Dude.
forward to the Planescape book that's coming out in Q4 of this year. But
Quarter 4.
otherwise, the books, I mean, the Giants book is going to be maybe okay, but otherwise, I don't really care about them. Anyways, D&D Direct complete.
D&D Direct. That's our coverage. It was just meh. I didn't even know what happened. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah,
That's how in touch I am.
And I love
all right.
D&D, I just don't.
I just missed that one. Flew under the radar. I saw that video about the VTT and I was like, "Oh, cool." And I watched it and that was it. Or skimmed it. I didn't even watch the whole thing. I was like, skip 5 seconds, skip. Okay, that looks all right. Skip.
Yeah,
What they should have done was just going D&D 1, where you can play 5e, but it sucks.
Some of it sucks and some of it's broken.
You ever thought this is too interesting? You're gonna love D&D 1 D&D.
Do you like druids? Not anymore.
Not anymore. Do you want your class to be stuck in one particular role for the entire time? You're gonna love 1 D&D. Anyways, getting off topic. What's the main topic today, boys? We're talking about integrating your character's backstories into the main story, and
It's a follow-up.
It's a kind of a follow-up. Yeah, we touched on this a little bit at the end of the last episode. We're going to talk about collaborative storytelling, open world versus linear, potentially, the DM's role in your backstory, depending on how much detail you give, how backstory should maybe play out, how people expect them to play out versus how they might play out, depending. It's about communicating with your DM about all the things you'd like to happen. So,
right, what do you got first up?
I don't know. What was what? That was
you
me.
made a weird face, but there was nothing coming through Discord.
Yeah.
The Discord, the gate on Discord is really aggressive. I need to turn it down. I think I'm going to start with the open versus linear argument. I hear this quite a bit. Well, D&D's open world, or I played in a campaign and it felt like it was on rails. So I don't think I kind of just want to touch on this. For one, every story is linear to a degree. It's just how focused are you on doing the thing? If it feels like it's on rails, that's because your DM isn't doing a very good job.
Yeah, that's I agree
at
with
the
that.
At the same time, I do think I am of the personal belief that I need a big old gigantic hook to like catch the players and be like, this is the plot. This is the start of the plot.
I think that
sometimes you can end up meandering.
Well, it's difficult to find that balance between the on the rails and letting the players sort of explore.
No, once you give them the plot, once you say, "Hey guys," and you punch them across the face and you say, "Here's the fucking plot," and they can be like, "Oh damn, we better take care of this plot." But then maybe they're dealing with some plot stuff and like a little side nickel pops up and it's, "Oh my god, it's
Or you do.
Whinging Bangle Bopper from someone's backstory, and then
I
you go
think
do that for a little while.
a good way to do it is like, especially if you start at like level 1, you do mini plot, mini plot, mini plot, mini plot.
Any plot, yeah.
That all ties into big giant plot.
Yeah, if it's also somewhat difficult to do it. If you can do it,
Less
that is a
subtle.
great way to do it. Yeah,
I don't. I like subtlety sometimes. I do not like it if it feels like there's no direction at all.
it's and I think that when people complain about being on rails, I think that it's because they've come across something that they tried to deal with and were just blocked at every turn to try to deal with it because the
Yeah.
DM's like, I'm not ready for you to deal with that yet. Instead of making it a creative thing, like we're even
Yeah,
maybe like it runs away or something.
if
If
you're a
you like
DM,
cast a spell and you're like, oh, it misses.
yeah, if you're a DM and you're putting up massive barriers at every corner so that nothing works. That's what makes it feel like it's on rails and you can't
Yeah.
do anything. I was in a campaign one time where we were attacking a city or something. Like the whole story had felt like this. It was like tunnel vision. If we weren't doing the exact same they wanted us to do, it was we try to bounce off and we just get pushed back, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And nothing we did felt consequential because of that and because of the NPC characters where we're struggling to fight 5 guys on a wall while we're raiding this city. And then he's like, in the distance, you see that guy you talked to earlier doing triple backflips and killing 10 guys at once. And you're like, why doesn't he just do this?
Yeah.
Why am I here? Why am I up here struggling? Why am I? If you had
Yeah.
this many people that strong, why did you even include me?
Yeah, it's always it's tough to balance like
You have to make
especially like cool NPCs, right? You don't want them to be so cool as like, oh, well, I don't actually need you, but you don't want them to be so weak that they're like, I can't do anything by myself. Could you go get me a ham sandwich?
Sure. You
I
can
lost
have a
my
cool
pot. I need more.
yeah. You can have cool NPCs that are powerful, but they need to be one of two things. They need to be like an untouchable kind of powerful, where they're either like a mentor to the group, they're a villain that you're going to face later, where your players are like, we're not strong enough to face this guy yet, right? Or
Mhm.
if they're the powerful mentor, they're teaching you things, and you see their power, they reveal their power slowly over time. Or if you have a more powerful NPC that's awesome and cool, and you want him to be kind of in and out of the story, you have to use them sparingly, otherwise it makes the players, you have to keep the players as the focus. The players are the heroes of the story. This guy that's helping you, that's more powerful than you, he has already been the hero of a story, and he is just assisting you on your journey to be the hero because he's powerful, but he's not powerful enough to beat this guy on his own, and he needs you because you're the
To get
new young
stronger.
hero. Yeah, you're the young hero, and he needs to rise you up so that you can become powerful enough to help him in the end. And maybe he sacrifices himself or something happens to him,
Or
and
maybe he just gets out of nowhere blown to pieces, and you're like,
yeah,
we gotta
something
go
happens.
on revenge to get this killer.
You have to kill my guy. Yeah, he can't overshadow the players. It can't be like, and you're
Mentor
fighting
is,
him, huh?
I think a mentor is like would be a very good use in
Of
campaigns,
your
because if one, you get somebody that will train you and like maybe like lead you on a certain path. Two, you can have an amazing moment in the sense of maybe he saves you a couple of times and then boom, he just gets destroyed. So everyone's going, we love that guy. Oh, we gotta save him, or we
gotta
gotta
save that
we
guy.
gotta avenge him.
He's helped us so much. We can't not let him. If he's captured, we gotta go save him. He's the guy.
It's also tough for DMs to know which NPCs the group is going to latch onto. Like, I can write an NPC that I'm like, yeah, this is going to be the guy that the group's really going to dig, and you guys be like, okay, bye, and then I'll just write some one-off character, and you guys will sit and talk to him for 20 minutes.
That's because okay.
That could
Then
also be a time like where if they don't attach to him right off the bat, Maybe
He
in a
he
session or two,
reoccurs.
he comes back. He shows up. He saves the group this time. The
Yeah,
first
yeah.
time
So
he just gave you some advice. The second time he saves you. If the group's still not doing it, then it's like, okay,
yeah,
he just kind of like he wants to help you guys. He's like watching you, and he's like, you guys suck, and you need some
yeah,
help.
yeah. That's one good
He
way to
gives you the
handle it.
wake up call conversation.
He's a recurring character that comes back a lot and does that if you want your powerful NPC. Another way to do it that I thought of in the moment, which is this is an Eric way to do it.
Uh-oh.
You have your archetype. You go, I want there to be this mentor character, right? That's powerful and does all this cool stuff. And you've got his stats and you got all of his stuff set up. And then when the players find a suitable, like, you have a list of NPCs that could potentially be this person, and if they really start like interacting with one NPC in particular, well, after they've interacted with him, because if it's a really awesome character that they like, they're going to come back to him, right?
Mhm.
Maybe the next time they come back to him, he's like, all right, guys, I do have something to tell you. I'm actually a super
I'm
powerful
actually a
dude.
badass.
I'm
Yeah.
actually this guy, and this is the thing. And they're never gonna know that he was just gonna be a bar guy that just happened to be a guy they walked across. You know what I mean? Even
Mhm.
like take that guy in the woods that like Brian talked to for so long, the big furball guy. That would have been a
Fritz.
hard yeah, that would have been a hard one, but he wanted to go back and talk to that guy. It totally could have turned out that he was a major point for something, right?
It could have been, I
It
guess.
depends on how much you prepare. You prepare a ton, so maybe not. But for me, like if they're like, we gotta go back and talk to Fribs. Fribs was sick. I go back and Fribs is like, actually, boys, this is my real voice. I've been watching you from the shadows for months. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like if you have to, if that's the character everyone wants to talk to, or keep him the same personality, I guess, and you just roll with it. And he like helps from the shadow, helps right. He's not a powerful character, but he has a lot of strings to pull, a lot of influence in the world. Like maybe he's not powerful in the sense of he can blow your ass away, but he's powerful in the sense that like,
He's
oh,
politically
He
powerful.
has answers
yeah, I have
to
answers
questions.
via my network of people and my connections in the government and my connections underground, and I can get answers and I can get you an audience with this person or this person. He becomes the go-to guy if you want to make a character part of that
Yeah.
thing.
Sure.
You don't seem to agree.
That's just because I have so much worked out. It's difficult for me to shift quickly like that. But I mean, it's viable. It's just hard for me to do, for sure.
Hard for yeah. Just like take that ratchet strap you have on the world, just let it out a couple of clicks, and then you'll give yourself a little more freedom to like ebb and flow with the characters. Because like the flow of the party, in my experience, never lines up with what you want it to be. You know, you're like, this is the guy, guys, and they're like, yeah, well, fuck you, just like you were saying.
And thinking in the opposite sense, throw in a villain in that is reoccurring, someone that shows up once, beats the party down, and goes, "You guys are nothing. I'm leaving.
Yeah, and maybe you're
You're not
fighting.
even worth killing." Maybe you down a couple guys or whatever. I mean, obviously, if players are just rolling incredibly well and you get
Yeah,
unlucky, you lose the guy. It happens. Let's look at Critical Role. It happened in
Yep.
that campaign too. But I think not hiding the villain too much makes it seem like, what are we doing?
yeah. What
What
is
are
it
we
that we're
going
working
after?
towards?
And making the villain a part of the party helps in the sense of like he shows up and beats you down, and at every turn you think you won, and nope, he shows up, and
Yeah.
everything that you've been working for gets screwed over, or you find out that you finally beat this thing and he actually had his hand in it. It's the same
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. The subtlety, like the main villain doesn't necessarily have to be subtle, but he beats you down, he leaves. Maybe you fight like a smaller guy and you don't even know it, but you do defeat him. And then, oh shit, it turns out that he had the crest on his like, or a tattoo, or some kind of hidden thing on his body, or the place where he lived after you scoped him out. Oh, he's got paperwork that attaches him in some way, even if it's tertiary through like a third party to this main villain. Oh shit, this thing we've been working on connects back to that guy who kicked our ass 2 months ago. And like every trail, if you want it to be more subtle, like every trail off to the side, not every, but main bigger side adventures that the party goes on leads back to this villain or person in some subtle way, or a more like, and you walk up and he's got a neon sign on his door that says works for bad guy. You know?
And I tell you what, using both at the same time, that's could be how you get a mentor in there, is through a villain. The villain beats you all down so hard, everyone's going down, and then boom, this guy shows up, rescues you. Doesn't kill the villain, but rescues
pushes
you.
him back enough to
Gives you enough
get him to
time,
leave.
and he's like, "You guys got to go. You can't do this."
Yeah, that'd be a good way to
And
introduce
reiterate, you
that kind of
guys
thing too.
are not strong enough. You must leave now, or you're gonna die.
Absolutely. You need to watch some anime, is what we're saying.
I mean, all those things are valid. It's just like I am hesitant to use like a Deus Ex Machina, where it's like, you guys, I send you into a fight that I know you're gonna lose, right?
I
And
think you have to do it different, right? Like, instead of like being like, okay, I know I'm just gonna crush you guys, have us fight a whole bunch of stuff that we beat down, and then at the last second, this guy shows up, hits us with a big boom, and we're like, okay, we're gonna get toasted here, and then you flip it. The other guy shows up, rescues you real quick. You get out of there, and you go, okay, how are we gonna deal with that?
I mean, yeah, that's still an ex machina, a Deus Ex Machina kind of situation, but still, like, whether it's direct in the way that he just said, or it's more subtle in like you get your ass beat, and like what Joe was saying earlier, you're not even worth my fucking time, and he leaves or whatever, right? Then you get some kind of magical message or a letter, or this guy pulls some strings, and like you're in a town and the governor of the town's like, hey, are you guys this person? And you're like, who the fuck is asking? Actually, this guy's asking. I need you to come with me. Some convincing goes on. There's a good little role play moment, and then it brings you into the fold of, actually, guys, that guy you fought that kicked your ass, we've been working on trying to fight him for years, and we've got a resistance built up. And it's like, oh shit, there's this whole underground secret thing that none of us knew about that is leading towards X.
And I think a really big point in this too is, yes, D&D, you're supposed to let the players do what they want. Everything's up to chance, but adding moments, not all the time, but certain moments, like the big bad crushes you but doesn't kill you moments. If you throw those in there, that's just to help develop the story, to get that hook in. Of okay, now we know something that we are working for. We got to get strong enough to be able to fight that guy, to be able to stop him from doing something. He gives you a little bit of his plan. Oh, I'm gonna do blah blah. Boom! I'm out.
Just a nugget to go off of. And in a movie, in a narrative sense, in a book or in a movie, a Deus Ex Machina can really kind of like kill it. Oh well, fuck. Now we know this guy's in a TV show. Oh man, this guy's gonna show up every time something bad happens now, right? It's like in the first John Wick when he gets the pills, right? It's like, okay, well, I know some shit's gonna go down every time he takes those magic pills that cures all his wounds. You know what I'm saying? But in a D&D campaign where it is open-ended, you might need a more like, hey, guys, in your face, here's the MacGuffin. Chase it a little bit, you know?
Yeah. I also want to talk about, which sort of ties in what we're talking about already. How do you feel about like big story arcs that aren't the final story arc? Basically, like almost like a mini campaign.
Smaller
that goes to a
arcs
certain
that,
one, and then
yes.
another arc, like from different level to level.
smaller
I
arcs that
love
yeah.
that. I absolutely love it. Even if it's a massive arc in the whole story that leads you to a certain point, it gets you to a certain point to where you have to kill the Goblin Lord to get to this point, but then the next point is okay, now there's dragons.
I see this a
So
lot
we
in
have to do so we have to get stronger and stronger and stronger.
yeah. I don't see this as I'm either gonna sound really smart or not smart at all. Uh
Let's roll the
in
dice.
let's roll the dice. In Western shows, like in Lord of the Rings, there is a main arc, the main plot of Lord of the Rings. Get the ring to the volcano, right?
Mhm.
There are character arcs within that arc. Okay.
Sure.
But those character arcs, they're not ever going on a side quest. They're not ever they're building up, but they're not building up in the way that we're talking, in the way that fits in a D&D campaign. In anime, there is massive arcs that are part of an even bigger overarching thing that they're working towards. And then it's like the shonen formula, which works great for D&D because players don't have the time. It's not that they don't have the time to invest. They're obviously playing, but they're not thinking about it 24/7, right? A lot of the time. So you need to be less subtle. And shonen anime is a great practice on we're throwing subtlety out so that we can build this story up over a course of 4 or 5 arcs so that they can fight one big bad guy. And these big arcs contain sub arcs, but even these big arcs are leading to the biggest arc of them all.
Right. They all need to fit in and stay in line until you do the big arc. You finish the big arc, but then you kind of need to do like, we won, we're good.
I'll use
Time skip a year or two, something, and
yeah.
then boom.
Time skip, you did a couple things.
Here's the next big bang. But it can't be something small at that point. It has to be another big bad because your characters are going to be this big good.
Yeah.
And
It
it
can't
has to equal
and
out.
it can scale to level 20 pretty easily doing that. Have you ever seen like Dragon Ball Z?
I have not.
Dragon Ball Z is a good example because in the beginning it kind of made sense. It does go off the rails. Demon Slayer. You've seen Demon Slayer? You told me you've seen Demon Slayer, right?
I've seen a few episodes of it. I haven't seen
Okay.
very much.
You're familiar with Demon Slayer. In Demon Slayer, there is a big demon that they are definitely working towards fighting. But like they just got done doing an arc that is working towards it ostensibly, but that big villain isn't really part of it. But they are fighting a really powerful character that they build up the whole season to, and then they overcome that difficult thing. And then it's just it's a building block towards the bigger thing. It's a smaller arc within a bigger story, but spans a long enough length of time that you could get something narratively, both for your players, for the NPCs of the world, and enough for the villain to be like, well, shit, these guys killed my lieutenant, or they killed my general, or they killed my sergeant on a lower level, right? Whatever the case may be.
Right.
So it's not
Nope.
subtle. It's not
Yeah.
subtle.
I have trouble doing that kind of thing because I always am like, I want my big bad to be like on it, right? Like if I were to write a big villain and so, like you start killing all of his dudes, I don't want to write a villain that's like, well, I'll throw more little dudes at him rather than just go over and pound them
So,
right now.
okay, let's use a D&D example. We'll use the campaign you joined in on, Michael's
Mhm.
campaign. The villains in that campaign we came across pretty organically. Oh, okay. Actually, this works out great.
Okay.
We find Alzira. Alzira is a problem. We're trying our best to deal with Alzira. Alzira is an enemy that we think is too powerful for us to face directly. We have contact with her multiple times. We try to negotiate things, but ultimately it all kind of fails and falls apart. And then who comes and helps us? Oh, it's this other wizard guy. Oh, we find out that other wizard. Yeah, Linzerus. Linzerus turns out he was in a party with this person in the past, and they're both super powerful, and he's super powerful, but he doesn't want to deal with her. But he's willing to help us deal with her. So there's this, we have the mentor, we have the villain, and then we have a lot of subplots. Oh, uh, the Grove thing, that's not really part of the main story as far as like here's the big villain. But in that arc, which Alzira does not end up being the be all end all arc of that campaign, she was just the first big one
we just thought she
dealt
was
with. We
the
thought
big
she
one.
was,
and it all tied in too. Like, really, we
it
start
was
out we're slaves in this camp that are looking for these crystals.
Yeah.
And then we get out of that camp, and then you find out, oh, okay, Alzira is like wrecking this place, and
you came in late enough that you missed the build up, right? What part did you come in at? I don't remember.
I was in the cave with the vampire.
Okay, we had already done the planes hopping thing.
Yeah.
Alzira was a problem, but she was on the back burner by that point. She was a thorn in our side, not the focus of what was going on.
Alinta was at that point.
Alinta
And that was
was at
another
that
thing.
point.
Alinta was at that point, and Alinta wasn't the big bad at the end either.
And he wasn't even the big thing either, but he was bigger than Alzira. And we had kind of come to the point where maybe we could take Alzira, but we got to deal with this. You know what I mean? It was the shonen formula. We had a lot of smaller arcs.
At another point, we almost went, Alzira, let's team up.
We tried
in her.
Yeah, we got desperate.
Character development, it switches around, man.
Linzerus dies. Linzerus is gone, and we need another powerful ally to fight this other thing that's even scarier than her. And now we're powerful enough that we think we could take her, but now we have two problems. We have Empire coming in, and they're fucking stuff up, and we have this guy, which was totally our fault, but we didn't tell anyone that. And then there's her. We don't want to side with them, and we have to beat that. And she has an army. She has things we need. She then becomes a character that's part of our story. And while in the end, she doesn't ever, like, her part of it ended up not being the main thing. Another, like, her main general person, we ended up befriending, and we convinced her to join our side. And
yeah, I don't know if I told you guys so Victor came in, and his god was the Raven, and he had found some journal at the monastery where he was.
Yeah.
That had belonged, or that had been, I don't know if it originally belonged to, but it had been used by Alzira. Okay. And the Raven was like, if you find her, kill her. Which was a really, really weird thing for the Raven to say.
Yeah, and we weren't even
and I was like
I think even by the time you came in, the god stuff was just starting to start. Like,
yeah, Rook was. I think Rook started kicking off a lot of that god stuff because he had given us the quest to do it, but then he died.
so right there, that whole campaign, and he just told us last week that he kind of made it up on the fly. It's not that you can't plan, but that was the small arcs into the big arcs, and the thing that fit. And while our backstories weren't as prominent in that campaign in the beginning, our characters developed very nicely over the course of that campaign. I started off pretty neutral. Then I was like, I got to save these people. Maybe I'm a little more good. And then I think at one point I was pretty close to flat out. I'm breaking on the edge of I'm evil. If you're in my way, I'm not negotiating with you. If you do not agree to do what I do, I am going to burn you to death.
Yeah, Shiro definitely got there.
And Shiro got there for sure. But then, as the campaign progressed, we were able to pull back from that and become the heroes again. And that's good character development over the course of the whole campaign. It doesn't have to be. Our backstory stuff was just snippets. But not to say that if we had a more epic backstory, like if we had planned it, like the way in your campaign we had these big backstories, that can be worked into these mini narratives, the bigger narratives, the backstories. Think of players' backstories as like a smaller narrative that happens within the medium-sized narratives, or maybe if their backstories are complicated enough, it's a medium-sized narrative that fits into a large narrative, but then the main narrative is an extra large narrative.
That's like, dude, Aragon. Look at him, dude. He's a main thing, but he's not the main thing. And his character development started as a medium thing.
Yeah.
So that was another thing I wanted to jump into. You just touched on there. How how much do you think a character's backstory should tie into what your original, like, overarching plot is?
So here's the thing. If if we had given you backstories and we did no prep with you whatsoever, we just handed you a piece of paper and you said, all I want to change is this. Okay.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily, it's not that it can't be done. A big quest where you do someone's backstory in one big go is an option. Me personally, and what I think I would try to do I've never had that kind of backstory in any campaign I've ever run, but I would try to drip feed it to them. If it fits in with the main story, I drip feed it to them in the context of the main story. And if it kind of exists outside the main story, I would either drip feed it to them over time until it came to a head and then it had to be dealt with, or I would find a way to have it feed into the main story in an interesting way.
I think that's where in DMing, whenever you're going along your main story, you got to try and find times to have downtime to where your characters would happen to run into situations where they deal with their backstories.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be go 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 on the main story. But having something to chew on, a big thing that happens, and then maybe there's a little lull in between these big things, but never let it lull for too long. Like you can give the characters some time, and if they want to pursue something that isn't the main story, that can be a small subplot. And that subplot could be their backstories. That subplot could be something super simple, or that subplot could be there's a town that needs help getting rid of it could be the World of Warcraft quest, you know what I mean? I need you to go kill 12 boars. But that stuff you can't chain too many of those events together. And the players have to want to do it. And after they've done a couple of little side things, you need to be like, oh, well, shit. Hey, you're getting a message. Oh, well, hey, you're getting the summons. Oh, well, hey, you go back into town and there's a guy waiting at the gate looking for you. You know what I mean? If it's like an underground thing, maybe a guy like, oh, bumps into you. And then later you guys are at the tavern and you reach in when someone goes, I'm going to buy a beer or let me buy a mead. You reach into your pocket and you feel something. Wait, that wasn't there before. And you pull it out. Oh, it's a summons. It's a letter. It's a thing that pulls them. If they're straying from the narrative too far, this pulls them back to the narrative in a way that doesn't feel like, oh, you want to go over there and fight the goblins on the mountain? Well, the goblins are plus 30 armor and you can't touch them. There's an invisible wall at the edge of town that keeps you from going out there.
That's
Oh,
that's the best way to do it.
you're, you're walking through town and you're trying to take a right. Well, there's a cart in the road. You can't go down there. All right, well, I go down to the next one. Well, there's a cabbage vendor blocking that one. You're like, well, what the hell? I'll go to the town square. There's a circle. There's like a roundabout. You go to the roundabout. There's a giant marketplace going on today that's blocking all the exits except for that one over there. And you're like, well, what the fuck? That's linear.
At some point now.
Yeah. That's truly linear. That's like, and like in the way that I just described it right there, you could do it once as like a comedic element. You know what I mean? But you don't want to be. That's what makes a campaign feels railroady.
Yeah.
But you can railroad players and definitely not make it feel like you are railroading the players.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky, but it's definitely doable. Especially it's I think it feels more tricky if you're the one doing it than
Yeah,
if you're the
sure.
one having it being done to you. You're just like, "Oh, that's weird." But
It's
the one
weird.
doing it's like, "It's not that weird."
It's not weird. It feels like they should definitely are seeing all these things. But they're not. Most of the time, they're not. Players aren't. They're not paying that much attention. I'm like hitting the big like it's like you're sanding something, right? If it's a real jagged thing that you're starting and you're sanding, you're only hitting the peaks. The stuff that falls in the valley gets filled with dust, and that gets like sanded over, and it takes a long time to reach those dust particles down there. You know what I'm saying?
I suppose. That's a weird analogy.
Sorry. I sand a lot of things.
I totally understood that analogy though.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. You're hitting the peaks. The stuff that falls into the valley, you'll get to eventually. But it's not the main focus. And later when someone goes, remember that rock that fell off the top of that peak? It's coming up, baby. And you're like, oh shit, I do remember that guy from 5 weeks ago that said his name to me once in a bar, you know?
No, you don't.
I don't, but if you say, remember this guy, he did that thing, I'd be like, oh shit, you're right. Even if I didn't, I'd say that because that's what you do. You gotta be players out there, be kind. You're not thinking about it nearly as much as the DM is. When he goes, remember so and so, you go, where was he again? And you go, you met him at the bar. You talked to him for like 5 minutes. Oh my God, you're right, dude. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I got you. What's he got to say? And then you move on, right? That's a pro tip for all you players out there, like screwing with your DM too often. No, dude, I don't remember that at all, and I don't care. If you're doing that, you're the problem, not the story. um, anything else? Any other questions you got for me? I feel like we've covered a lot. If you toss in a little thing every now and then, if a guy's backstory is that his parents are dead, one of them's dead, and one of them's trapped in the underdark in a prison camp or whatever, maybe make it so that oh, he you're doing a big arc just finished. It's coming to the end of this big arc that you were on. And oh, he gets a message. His dad or whatever was able to get a cheeky little note out, or maybe his dad learned the message spell from a fellow prisoner and he's able to communicate with you in some way. And then that's a turn that takes the characters in that direction. And then, oh, okay, we got to go to the Underdark for this thing. Well, then the Underdark and their backstory, the backstory part of it becomes a micro arc within the Underdark arc, where you go into the Underdark and oh, there's some political trouble or something that's going on down here. It's not just that we're saving his dad, but we're also freeing these prisoners, or we're reforming this government, or we're taking out the corrupt leader, or whatever the case may be, right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay, how about this? How
Hero's journey.
well, okay, say you're doing your Underdark thing.
Yeah.
How do you feel about like random encounter tables?
You're talking about for like traveling down there?
Yeah.
I don't hate random encounters. I don't want to be in the Underdark and you go, and there's a pack of angels down here. It needs to be thematic to the zone you're in.
What I guess the question I'm trying to ask is
like daily rolls to see if something happens.
yeah, just that, or just how do you feel about like almost like forced combat? Like how do you feel about, because you're going somewhere that you've never been and it's definitely dangerous, and in an actual like if you were to actually do this in this world, you'd be fighting stuff all over the place.
Sparingly is okay. I'm going to use the newest God of War as an example of this, okay? I fucking loved that game. Open world and to an extent, but you could definitely power through it. What I did not like about that game, and what I felt like no one talked about, is like, if I just got done fighting a boss, if I just got done plowing through 3 groups of enemies or one big group of enemies, and then right after the fight, the players in the game, obviously the NPCs in the game, are talking to me and my character's talking to them, and I'm learning something about this. When I walk around the corner and oh, hold that thought for a second. We got to fight these ding dongs now, real quick. And then you fight them and you pick up the conversation again. And then you walk 10 more feet and you're like, yeah, I remember that time. Oh man, isn't this cool? And then boom, another fight right after that. It can feel tiring. It can just be like, can you just let me fucking walk for a little while, have this conversation, and have this moment with these characters so that I can feel fulfilled about this moment. I'm not so short. I don't have such a short attention span that I can't go 10 minutes without wailing a dude's head in. I can, you can let it go, but random encounters in and of themselves aren't bad. It's just that if it's like you wake up in the morning and you walk and you fight a pack of goblins, and then 2 hours later you fight another pack of goblins, then you sleep. What happens the next day? Oh, the same thing? Oh, okay. That's okay for like a couple of days if you're trying to make the travel part of the story. You need more than that, and it's like, what are there fucking goblins around every corner? Is there something waiting for me everywhere I go? Does everyone hate me that much? I'm just walking down here, dude. If you want a random encounter, have it be a guy who pops out and he's like, "Hey guys, what you doing out here? I got some stuff for you." And maybe he's trying to sell me some weird thing. He's like, "I got some cocaine." Even if it's that, even if I got the cocaine, even if it's that, that's like that's not significant to the story. It's not a fight. It's just a little moment for me to be like, "What's this guy doing? Oh, he's trying to sell me crack, or he's trying to sell me magic potions." He's like, "I got these potions, dude. I got them off these other guys. I don't know what they do, but I'll give you a good deal on them." You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, "All right, well, here's a little like fun moment that doesn't affect anything, but we can interact with it in a way that isn't." And now you got to fight someone. And now you got to fight someone. And you walk around the corner, you see a colony of fluffy bunnies, but they're there to kill you. And it's like, oh, again, I got to kill these guys.
No way.
Dude, another group of people that hate me? Does no one here like anybody? Like when I drive them to McDonald's drive-through, I don't want to have a random encounter with a group of hooligans who come out with chains and I got to get out of my car and fight them before I can order my food. I just want to like drive up and the guy goes, "Are you going to use the app today?" "No, I'm not." "What do you want?" And I do the order. That's the narrative that I have in that moment with the drive-through guy. And maybe I pull up and I go, "Oh, that's a sick shirt you're wearing." And we have a little exchange. I hand him my card, get my card back, get my food. I leave. I didn't have to fight anyone.
My work shirt.
My work shirt. I didn't have to fight anyone. There wasn't like, if I'm driving 10 minutes down the road, I don't want to have to stop and kick a dog or something. You know what I'm saying? I just want to get there. If the players are intent of just getting somewhere and you want to have a random encounter, fine. But too much random encounter that is just fighting, just broaden the horizons, DMs out there listening to this. Nobody wants to fight 10 packs of copy pasted goblins of different flavor. These are goblins. These are red goblins. These are blue goblins. No one cares. Fight one set of goblins and fight something else if you want to fight something else. Maybe it's a pack of alligators. Maybe it's a pack of wolves. Maybe it's one sentient wolf that's controlling 5 smaller wolves. Maybe it's a giant bird man who swoops down from the sky and crows come in from the side and peck your eyes out or something. Anything but just fighting the same enemies over and over again.
That was quite the rant.
Also,
drink after that?
Golly, dude. Random encounters. It's hot in here, dude. Random encounters, dude. They're not bad, but just give me some goddamn variance. I just want to have a talk with someone sometime.
I think not every encounter has to be a fight.
No, yeah, exactly. That's all I'm saying. TLDR, not every random encounter has to be a fight to the death. You can just have a nice conversation with someone. Someone's like, "Oh, you're walking to the Underdark? Oh, I've got a little cave home right here. Why don't you come in and have some soup?" And maybe they're not totally friendly. Maybe the soup gives you some weird disease and like, "Ha, the soup had AIDS in it," or whatever. And then you got to deal with that. You know what I'm saying?
Soup is involved in one of your backstories, and you want to do it now.
And you taste the soup, and you're like, "The soup tastes familiar. Oh, I got this recipe from my good surface friend, Jingle Bopper the Third." And they're like, "Jingle Bopper the Third? That was my uncle. He's, how'd you know him?" "Oh, well, we fought in the Great War together." Anything. That's the narrative. That's an interesting little nugget. It's not advancing their backstory in a significant way. It's not part of the main plot necessarily, but it's like, shit, we found this guy and he's got this recipe. What a coincidence. And they can't all be that. DMs out there listening to me, they can't all do that. Every encounter cannot be he has the special mead that your grandma made, okay? Because if every time you go into a place, you do that too often, the character's gonna walk in there and be like, "All right, I do an investigation check and I do 19 other checks to make sure there's not one tiny nugget in this whole room that ties it into my life.
Into my
I
home
think
life.
that was more RP than I've ever seen you do, Eric.
That just needs to be your next character, dog.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember when you guys in my first campaign when you went through the Underdark. I had trouble telling whether or not you wanted, because all the encounters were completely different. And you even came across some guy you didn't fight. He was the old like Vulture Man. I don't know if you remember him.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Vulture Man was fine. Vulture
Yeah,
Man
it
was like
cool
a little
because he gave us like good answers on stuff.
he was like a little puzzle guy. He
We
had
got to ask some
answers.
questions, and he was like, "Yeah, you can do this."
We didn't
and, and it was like, "That okay? That's good.
Wow, that helps
we
us.
got some info.
Fantastic.
Information is good. Information is great."
If I had a criticism about that going to the Underdark, it took way too long to get to the Underdark. I get that it's deep. How fucking deep is it? Is it like in the core of the earth? Am I having to travel 900,000 miles into the depths of the earth to get to the Underdark?
You
Like,
went
it's deep.
through
El Diablo.
there were spots you could go in that were closer to where like the cities were, but the only spot that you knew of at the time was where Beak's master was, and she had been trying to get away from all that. She had been trying to separate herself.
Okay, here's the thing. Beak's master was from the Underdark, right?
Yeah.
You could have given us a check, you could have given us something, and maybe Beak's master was like, "Hey guys, there's this entrance over here. That's where I came out. But on the DL, there's a more dangerous entrance. If you go across the land to this place, it won't take as long. It won't be such a long journey, and you can have a little bit more overland. Because once you're in a cave, you're in a cave. Once you're in a dungeon, you're in a dungeon. That's it. You're stuck there. I don't want to be stuck there too long. I want to get through the little dungeon or the little cave system relatively quick. Have a random encounter where I fight something, have a random encounter where I talk to a crazy raven guy who's sitting in a cave, like, oh, here's my collections of books, and unless you give me 5 tokens of your appreciation, I won't tell you anything. And you have your thing with that, and then boom, you're at the city and shit's happening. You know what I'm saying? Like, caves are
like 4 encounters.
I felt like remembering it right now. In my mind's eye, it felt like it took us 3 sessions.
Well, that's about right, because
it's too long.
Those 4-ish encounters was a vampire. That was once you got a little closer. There was a vampire. There was
That's too long.
Cave.
Too much travel. Cut that in half at least. 1.5 sessions maximum.
You think
for travel? Oh,
I think a cool way, especially if you're doing travel over like weeks.
I'm traveling
like a full week.
Yeah.
You could be like, you have an encounter on the first day, you roll for it, and then over the next 3 days, you guys run into certain things, you take care of it, blah 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 blah. Then you roll for the 5th day. You do an encounter. Then you skip. You guys did blah 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 over these 3 days. Blah 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 happened. Then on that 4th day, you roll again. Another encounter.
Yeah, and like wanting your players to
interact. That way you still get a couple of them.
Yeah,
a couple random encounters through like a week or 2-week period. But it doesn't feel like every single day you're so unlucky that
you're
keep
just slogging. Yeah, and a setback. If there's a setback, someone rolls a bunch of bad survival checks or something, you can have a setback. Don't make it be like some
just add an extra roll.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be like, well, you the spot you found when you laid down to go to bed, your paladin slept on a rock and now his back's fucked up. It's going to take an extra week to get there. And it's like, no, it sets us back.
Cure wounds. Okay.
Cure wounds. It sets us back a few hours at most. Or maybe it's a pet rock and we have to deal with that now. You know what I'm saying? It pees in his bed and then
pees in his bed.
Your pet rock pees in your paladin's bed and he sleeps on it wrong. Or it's one of those like beach rocks, you know, the ones that they cut in half and it's got like a little living organism inside of it. Maybe it's psychic and it talks to us. That sets us back a little bit because we accidentally got into his rock layer. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't need to set us back a whole session. Setbacks fine. Random encounters, totally fine. Spice them up a little bit, people out there. Spice them up. 1.5 sessions. If it includes combat, That's good for travel, unless it's an extended travel. Like if I'm in the tip of South America and I'm traveling to the North Pole, yes, that should take a few sessions. But there should also be like, well, you were walking up through Brazil and you found a city, and that city had this thing going on. If you want to make your travel take a long time, have interesting things that draw the characters off that make it take a long time. Now I need a drink of water.
Okay. You earned it.
All right. What else?
What else? Let me look.
I'm pretty satisfied. I'm pretty satisfied with that rant. Do you feel like you gained any information from that rant, Isaac?
Yeah, I mean, it's always
That's the main thing.
It's for me, it's always like a balancing act of trying to figure out, because I want it to make sense. Like, oh well, if you did this, then obviously this set of occurrences would happen. But I also don't want it to be, well, particular set of circumstances also could be boring. And also, it's like I don't want it to be. It's trying to find a balance of realism versus like it's a story still. So
You need narrative structure, but it's not a book and it's not a movie. Random things can happen at any time. But when you have a checklist of like, well, we just got done playing that guy. What's next? I don't want to have to like, I'm not pulling out a to-do app. I'm an adventurer. Things are happening organically in my life. There's a goal I have in mind, and there's a little mini goal that is my backstory that I have in mind. But things can come in at any time. You know what I mean? That's fine. And that is a balance that has to be struck, and that's a thing that has to be learned. I'm not even as good at it as I'm talking about it. The things I'm saying, I'm going, yeah, why don't I do that? But I just haven't run a campaign. I haven't run a big campaign in a really long time.
yeah,
And as far as
it's always tough
like
to try to
making
figure
it,
it out.
as far as like making it feel real, making your players feel like it feels real. Most of the time, I've said this so many times. I feel like players are invested. They're invested in their stories. They're invested in the main story. And if they're good players, they're invested in each other and they're invested in their own characters. But nobody can keep track of everything. And inconsistencies are just going to happen in a world that you're running in a D&D campaign. And those inconsistencies, if someone goes, well, actually, we talked to this guy. Okay, you know what? In your head, you're going, you either go, you're totally right. I fucked up. Step one. Or you go, well, actually, there's this other guy. You only thought you were talking to that guy. And then you turn it into a thing. Boom, new thing happens. Got to deal with that. Or you don't. You just leave it alone.
Yeah, I mean, part of the way that I write campaigns is coming from the way I want to experience things as a player, and knowing your players is going to help a lot. But like I really like picking up on little things and being like, oh man, that's going to be a thing. Like the most satisfying D&D session I ever played was when I figured out, before he told us, that Jack and Bones were brothers.
Yeah, and that's an interesting story beat that honestly had little to no impact on the overall story, but it was awesome. Just a little side thing. It was a little thing.
It's a pretty big thing.
I mean, it was a pretty big thing
for our characters.
But did it really affect the main story? No, it affected our story, and that's awesome. That's the tiny plot that's in the medium plot. That's part of the large plot. It all's coming back together here, guys.
So I try to leave things like that for you guys, but I don't think anyone else likes to do that like I do. So I think that a lot of things are missed. And I bring them back up to make sure that you guys see them and they become relevant later. But
your character in that campaign was good at that kind of thing, though, right? Investigating.
He was insightful. He wasn't particularly.
I know, but he was an insightful person who is looking for these kinds of things, right? You need to make sure that your character, if you want those things to happen, you have to have not only players that want to engage in that, but their characters want to engage in that. Because if the players are invested in their characters in a way that you want them to be, which is they are playing as their character, like my character in your campaign, he's not going to be looking for that kind of stuff. I'm not even going to play him that way. I'm not going to look for those things because that's not what he does, dude. He's He is a machine that just does the thing that needs to be done, and that's it. And it is work, right? My character's not going to do that. If you set that up expecting my character to find that thing out, maybe you get lucky and I find it out and I figure it out a way. But I'm not looking for those things. You have to have a character that's looking for those things. You were looking for the clues.
I
And
don't know that
so,
it's. I mean, you can have a character that specifically doesn't look for those kinds of things,
I'm sure maybe they
but
pick up on it and it's organic,
yeah,
but
I feel like your character doesn't have to be an investigator to find
not
clues.
an investigator, but is paying attention to the world in a more deep way. If you have a character that is like kind of dumb and the guy's playing him as kind of dumb, you're not gonna notice that kind of stuff. And
Yeah, but I feel like there's room to. I mean, I
there's
feel like
room
that kind of metagaming is okay. If you're like, oh man, I think that's a thing to the rest of the party, I feel like that's fine.
outside of the characters, maybe, but
So
then
I think if the player enjoys it, then it's
if the
fine.
player enjoys it, it's fine. Yeah, sure. And you can add those things in, but like I was saying earlier, if it's not landing and no one's picking up on it, just like take the dial and click it up one notch. Every now and then, just like one little up to the next point. And maybe it's level 5 is where people start clicking with it. Or maybe it's 1. Or maybe it's 11. Maybe it needs to be like, and you trip over your mom's gravestone. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, that skull you just tripped over, it's magic and it has runes carved in it. And when you pick it up, your hands touch the runes and you have a magical journey that tells you this thing that is going to happen. It could be as subtle as a guy whispers from across the room and maybe no one notices it, all the way to it's punching you right in the face and people are like, oh wow, that hurt, all right, on to the next thing. And if that's the case, you just gotta like, I gotta crank that up a little more, gotta be a little less subtle, even more less subtle, depending on the players and the characters that are in that campaign.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm trying to. That's there are a few things out. I mean, there's not a lot out, but there are a few subtle things out that in the current campaign that I am slowly turning up. That hopefully somebody starts putting together. I think that we're going to get more this week. I think we'll see.
Just keep on turning it up, brother. Turn it up forever. The ceiling is so high up that you can just keep raising it. I think the only thing we haven't no, we okay. I think we're good. I think we kind of covered everything we wanted to cover, right? We talked
I
about
think
Yeah.
so. Go over it
that
again.
was let me go over it again. We wanted to cover collaborative storytelling, open world versus linear, improvisation and flexibility. We didn't set that out at the beginning, but we definitely did cover that. Uh DM's role in telling the story and the narrative, we covered that. Player choice and consequences. We could save that for later. We
I mean,
did.
there's a really easy example.
Oh well, yeah.
We've talked about on this show before.
Yeah. Anyways, don't worry about that. Characters' backstories, we talked about that. That was most of our stuff. Campaign structure and pacing, we talked about that. Been a solid episode, boys.
Nice, there you go.
Solid, all the way solid.
The rantiest rant you've ever ranted.
We talked
There was a
about
little bit of anger on the end of that rant.
we talked
He was
about
like, yeah.
We covered all these topics. I got a nice rant in. Even Joe got involved big time in this episode. What an episode this was. I hope you all come back to join us for the next one. Sayonara, everyone.
Bye.
See ya.